Buddy, before we officially begin tonight, I am just going to remind everybody to please mute your cell phones. And we are just about on time here. Johnny, are we broadcasting? Okay, excellent.
My recorder's not working.
Oh, that's not good.
Okay, here we
Got it?
Don't
Okay.
touch it.
Little technical problem there. Okay, well, welcome. I will officially open the Brevard City Council regular meeting of Monday, February 16th. And I want to welcome everybody that has joined us here at City Hall, as well as everybody who is watching the live stream. And I want to start by introducing everybody that is up here. On my far right is our city attorney, Mac McKellar. Next to Mac is Councilman Lauren Wise. Next to Lauren is Councilwoman Pamela Holder. Next to Pamela is Councilman and Mayor Pro Tem Aaron Baker. I'm Mayor Maureen Kopoloff. On my immediate left is City Clerk Denise Hodgson. Next to Denise is Councilman Gary Daniel. Next to Gary is Councilman Dean Lytle. And next to Dean is our City Manager Wilson Hooper. At this time, I'd like to ask Pastor Brian Land of Grace Brevard Church to please come up and give our invocation.
Thank you. It is a real honor to be able to do this with our amazing town and our amazing city council. Let me just share just a tiny bit about Grace Brevard, and then I'll pray for a blessing on all this time. That we're about an 8-year-old church or so. We're in the American Legion building, so 5 blocks away, a corner of Jordan and Johnson. And when we first started, our goal was, our kind of goal was to be a church that Brevard would miss if we ceased to exist. Not just the people of our church, but the whole town of Brevard would miss us if we ceased to exist, because we want to serve our town. And so we've been blessed to be able to do that. We have folks who work with our Rise and Shine with Pastor Pamela, which is an amazing thing that they're doing, and with Sharing House and Cove Shelter, and we keep getting opportunities to do that. But this year, we're doing more with Sharing House, and we have a new thing. I just preached on this a couple weeks ago, that when Solomon asked for wisdom, he actually asked for a listening heart. He didn't say wisdom. He said, I want a listening heart. And so we, as a church, we're praying that we have listening hearts where we can, in order for us to fill the needs of our town, we need to know the needs. And we need to get back to the heart of what does our town need. And so that's my prayer for our church, but for our whole community, as I want us to have listening hearts so we can listen to each other and understand each other, even when we disagree with each other. But listen and understand and be unified together. So I want to pray, if that's okay, for our town to have listening hearts. Lord, we do thank you that you listen to us in our highs and our lows and our frustrations and our loves of one another, of our incredible town that you have blessed us with. Lord, you listen to us, and Lord, that you would give us listening hearts too, that we can listen to you, listen to one another, even when we don't like what we hear or we disagree. Lord, we can still listen, and we can still love, and we can still serve. So I do pray for a blessing on these men and women of the city council and the men and women of our town. Lord, that you would bless us, that we would be a blessing to others. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Brian. All right, if everyone would stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, honor, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, do we have a quorum, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Madam Mayor, you have a quorum. All members are present.
Council, you have the draft agenda. Are there any modifications to the draft agenda?
I'd like to ask that we move item K1 from the consent agenda to new business.
Okay.
And then I think we need to add a
Madam Mayor, if I can ask that we add a closed session for potential litigation, please.
Okay. Any other modifications? All right, do I have a motion to approve the modified agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Modified agenda is approved. Council, you've got the minutes of the February 2nd, 2026 regular meeting. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. We will move on to public comments. Thank you. The public is invited to speak during public comment at this time on any topic unless it is a public hearing item on this agenda. And we do have one public hearing this evening. Anyone who wants to speak must register with the city clerk, which is what the sign-up sheet is. When it is your turn, step to the podium in front of city council. State your name and address clearly. Limit comments to 3 minutes or less and avoid repetition. And I will give you a warning when you have 30 seconds left. Direct comments to the full council, not to an individual council member or to staff. All right, and our first speaker is Mr. Rodney Locks.
Good evening, council, mayor. My name is Rodney Locks. I live at 187 South Rice Street, and I have two things to talk about. The first is, you may already know this, the House Select Committee on Property Tax Reduction and Reform was established by North Carolina House Speaker Dustin Hall, and it aims to study options to reduce the property tax burden on North Carolina taxpayers. The committee will review existing tax reform programs, analyze how potential property tax reductions would affect local government budgets, and consider changes to the North Carolina Constitution to allow counties to implement property tax reductions and reforms. My suggestion is council provide an input to this process before they get to making a final decision, because you know it's going to impact local government budgets and your constituents. The second thing is, I understand that the city had a warming station at the fire department this winter. And have you considered a temporary use permit to use some of these vacant buildings in an emergency to protect public health and safety? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Locks. Our next speaker is Mr. Doug Powell.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council, and staff. Normally, I share historical facts about America's founding in anticipation of the 250th anniversary of our country, which is only 137 days away. Tonight, I'd like to take a look at some very recent history affecting our treasured city of Brevard. The last meeting, our city council, threw the prognostications of Poxitani Phil unceremoniously to the curb and appointed our own homegrown Pisgah Piper to be our new trusted weather advisor. And if I remember correctly, at that meeting, our mayor declared with authority that our fluffy-tailed meteorologist had predicted another 6 weeks of harsh winter weather for this area. Considering we have all enjoyed yet another beautiful day here in the 60s, this is another clear example that just because a particular outcome is predicted doesn't mean it is destined to happen. That is why Benjamin Franklin has been attributed in saying it is the first responsibility of every citizen to question authority. Despite the fact that in this case, our highest atmospheric authority is a medium-sized rodent with a very cute name, we always need to trust but verify what is being presented as fact. That is why it is imperative to dive into original source documentation regarding our American history and study the actual documents our founders debated and codified, so that none of us are duped into believing a false statement about our country just because it has been said over and over again. One quick example is the word democracy. We often hear that we need to protect and defend our democracy, except this word simply can't be located in any of our founding documents. In fact, our founders believed that a pure democracy was one giant step towards tyranny. The founding fathers loathed democracies and would never in their wildest dreams have presented to the states for ratification a democracy. Their constituents would have tarred and feathered them. That is why Benjamin Rush, a signer of the Declaration, said, "A simple democracy is one of the greatest of evils. A democracy is a mobocracy." And another signer, John Adams, and our second president, declared, "Remember, a democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There never was a democracy yet that did not commit suicide."
30 seconds.
So tomorrow, I would encourage all of you to ignore our dear Pisgah Piper's prediction. Throw on your favorite pair of shorts and sunglasses. Take your Constitution outside and look up Article 4, Section 4, and discover what actual form of government the framers guaranteed to the citizens of these United States.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Our next speaker is Linda Gallo.
Hi, my name is Linda Gallo. I live at 671 Probart, and I just wanted to thank Public Works for all the long hours they put into through the ice storm and the snowstorm, and then giving us garbage collection that next week. They're just awesome. Those guys have a heart of gold. They're just a great team. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gallo. All right, and that is everybody that has signed up for public comment. All right, we will move on to our special presentation. And tonight we've got a presentation on the Tannery Smokestack update, and our city manager, Wilson Hooper, is going to present it.
Yes, ma'am, and I'll ask my colleagues to pull up my PowerPoint, if they don't mind. So, Pastor Land talked about a listening heart. I'm afraid that I must present today with a heavy heart, because like Mr. Powell, I'm a student of history, an appreciator of history. And unfortunately today, I have to recommend that an important piece of Brevard's history be taken down. I'm talking about the Tannery Smokestack, a 125-foot tower on city-owned property that is a beautiful landmark and a monument to our community's industrial history, but has some problems that, in my opinion, mean its life needs to be cut short. Here's a quick rundown, maybe. Oop, there we go. Here's a quick rundown of what I intend to present today. I'm not asking you for any action today. In the weeks to come, I'll ask you to help me decide how we're going to pay for my recommendation. But for now, my goal is merely to inform you and the public on why we must take this action. So first, some history. And I confess this is just the history that's relevant to our conversation today. I'm not going to cover the decades the tannery was open and the contributions that that industry made to Brevard's economic and cultural history, which, needless to say, were significant. I'm just going to focus on the events that matter for us. With that said, I have an opinion about history, and that is that it should be the story of how things were and not just how we wish to remember them. That history should be truth, not just nostalgia. And the truth is that these factories that were open 100 years ago, the kind that were built by Mr. Silverstein and Mr. Strauss and the DuPonts and all the other industrialists that located their mills in western North Carolina, did so because there were plentiful natural resources and nobody to tell them how they could use them, and that included how they could dispose of their waste. And for good or ill, it's us who are dealing with the legacy of that. So this site was evaluated in 2010 after a citizen made a request to the United States EPA to evaluate the sites for contaminants. So the EPA did, and I'll go over on the next slide some of the things they found. Fortunately, after they did that assessment, they concluded that because of the degree of contamination and the fact that it was reasonably well contained, and the fact that this site was unlikely to redevelop in any significant way, it didn't justify the label of Superfund. Now, if you know anything about environmental policy, you know that Superfund sites are the worst of the worst. Think of Love Canal in Buffalo, New York. That's the most famous one. Those are sites that are actively contaminating the environment around them and putting public health at risk just by their very presence. Our site was not that. But the fact that it avoided that scarlet letter didn't mean it was clean. In fact, the EPA sampling and further sampling conducted later by another city vendor discovered that the site was eligible for brownfield designation. So brownfields are also contaminated sites, usually former industrial sites like this one was, that can still be reused if remedial actions are taken. Both the state of North Carolina and the federal government have brownfield programs, and this site falls under the state program. There are two main benefits to being labeled as a brownfield. First, the owner of the site is given legal protection against claims that might arise from the presence of contaminants on the site if they agree to redevelop the property according to specific terms negotiated with the state. Second, the site's owners are eligible to apply for state and federal funding to help remediate the site and make it somewhat usable again. In 2015, city mothers and fathers concluded that, even with possible state support, the cost of remediating the contamination and the presence of other certain constraints like floodplain on the site made it unlikely the site would ever redevelop privately. So the city used Part F, Parks and Recreation Trust Fund, dollars, to purchase the site with an eye towards one day converting it into a recreational facility. And indeed, that's what's happened on part of it. The cleaner southern portion of the sites have been converted into a trail segment and a skate park. So just want to reiterate the key point, I think, from that slide, and that is that to make sure that we, the owners, have the legal protections afforded to us by the Brownfield program, we have to redevelop the site only as a recreational use. All right, moving on to the site conditions. My slide uses layman's terms to describe them, and I'm going to be quiet in a minute and let folks look over this. But there is a series of heavy scientific reports that back up what I've got here in layman's terms. And those are publicly available for folks to read if they want further detail. So why am I sharing this when this is the information about the contaminants in the ground and not the contaminants in the smokestack? For two reasons. First, to give you some context about why staff assumed the stack was also going to be dirty and thus took great care and time to analyze it. And second, to help you understand that the redevelopment plan that we've got on the books for this property has to thread a needle physically and bureaucratically, and can't be easily changed. All right. As for the smokestack itself, an initial assessment of the stack was conducted in 2015 as part of the Brownfields transaction, and then another one was conducted in late 2024. The initial assessment, while it found the stack to be deteriorating, as most old stacks are, did not label the stack as hazardous. However, the second assessment conducted in 2024, with the final report being delivered last spring, had much more concerning findings, including the statement in the last bullet there. Perhaps the most prominent finding was the large crack pictured here that the report describes as, quote, a through-wall crack several inches wide with portions of material having become dislodged and fallen. No daylight can be seen through the opening, end quote. And you can't quite see it on that screen, but if you were closer up, you could see a speck of blue showing through that crack there. The report made several recommendations, including establishing an exclusion zone, i.e. an area of no public access, around the base of the stack, which we've done. Here are some additional images of the physical deficiencies on the stack. On the left, you can see brick courses with no mortar in between them. On the right, you might not be able to see it here, but if you could see this picture up close, you'd see mortar and bricks with scouring and cracking in the bricks themselves, not just in the mortar. For what it's worth, one of the neighbors that I talked to said that, in his opinion, the crack looks to be growing, and he's lived there, he said, for 7 years. Despite all this, that report concluded that the stack could be preserved, and it offered a few suggestions on how to go about that. They even offered an order of magnitude cost of around $400,000 in 2024 dollars. But what this report didn't cover, nor factor into its cost estimate, is whether the stack, sitting in the middle of a contaminated brownfield, was also contaminated, and what impact contamination might have on its preservation. So we needed that info, and we set about to find that out. It wasn't as easy as it sounded, though. The stack's structural condition was so bad, testing firms were reluctant to enter it without a structural engineer's assessment of whether it was safe to do so. The picture in the upper right shows what they were concerned about. You might not be able to make it out, but the stack's old flue opening, which is what's pictured there on the right, had been closed off with cinder block and brick, which was good. But the lintel at the top of the opening was an old railroad tie. And we weren't sure if, at this point, the bricks themselves, the bricks and cinder blocks themselves, had become structural. A railroad tie is not a traditional material for making lintels, and so we weren't sure if it was holding this stack up or if the bricks were holding the stack up. But after some doing, we finally got one of the firms under our annual service agreement, WSP, to make a plan for us. And so on the right, that fella in the yellow vest is making very delicate, very prescribed cuts under the supervision of a structural engineer just to get inside and test. Nothing more. When we finally got inside, the testing contractor, Reliant Environmental, pictured there on the left, and you can see he's suited up in his hazard suit and his mask, collected samples from the ash on the ground that he's standing on, the mortar between the bricks, and the bricks themselves. His results were mixed. They revealed that the bricks and mortar were free of asbestos contamination, which is good, but that the ash and dirt at the bottom of the pit was indeed coal ash, which ain't good. And I'm using the term coal ash in quotes because that's a term that, if you've been paying attention to civic affairs in this region over the past decade, you've probably heard of. And so that's kind of the brand name for this kind of stuff. But our particular stew has higher than normal amounts of boron, uranium, and thorium. That sounds scary, and it kind of is. And we need to get the state authorities to guide us on how to safely remove and dispose of this stuff. But I don't think that's the worst news we could have gotten for two reasons. First, as I said before, if you've been paying attention to civic matters in this region over the last decade, you've heard about coal ash or fly ash, and you know that we're not the only folks who've had it. And that gives me confidence that the industry is better equipped to help us take care of this than if it were something different. Second, although we don't know exactly how much contaminated coal ash there is at the bottom of the stack, we think it's a safe bet to assume it's probably less than the volume of contaminated bricks we would have had to dispose of if they'd been contaminated. And by the way, this info only came to us late last week, so we haven't had a chance to sit down with North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality about it yet, but that's our next step. So we've got a tall smokestack with physical deterioration and the presence of some contaminants. The latter complicates the preservation effort to such a degree that, in my opinion, it becomes untenable. But there are 6 other areas of risk that weighed heavily on my mind as I developed my recommendation. The first is that there are residential properties within the, quote, fall zone of the stack. The houses themselves are out of the zone, but the properties are in it. Now, I use the term fall zone because that's what the engineers use, but it's very unlikely the stack is going to fall down like this. and jeopardize the properties in that way. But still, their presence that close requires us to take action. Second, the presence of the trail close by. In reality, if the tower were to fall, it would fall like this, crumbling from the top. And that, of course, would put the user of a trail at extreme risk. So between those two risk factors, we need to take action. Not discounting the fact that if we had any kind of uncontrolled failure of the stack, it would probably send some of those contaminants out into the environment. So for the sake of our constituents, we must take action. And then the factors on the right are important, less so in my opinion, but still notable. The first two bullets there are related, and that is our insurer, the North Carolina League of Municipalities, has sent us strong signals that they will not continue to provide liability insurance for the stack, even if it were to be renovated. This means that the financial liability for any damage caused by the stack to any property, any person, or anything would be borne directly from the city's general fund, in essence, directly from the taxpayer. Finally, and this is the least important in my opinion, but still notable, construction of the Tannery North Trail section is slated to start this summer by NCDOT, who's familiar, by the way, with how to build things across contaminated ground. And so we need to get the stack taken care of soon before their construction begins. Therefore, for all those reasons, my strong recommendation is that the city move forward with demolition of the stack by hiring a qualified engineering firm, and we've chosen one called BLE, to design the demolition. That's the headline of my presentation today, and of course, my recommended next step. Now, I want to make clear to you, council, and to the public who are listening that no matter the conditions, the stack can be demolished safely. What we don't know is precisely how and at what cost. BLE is who we're going to hire to help us figure that out. So this next topic I'm going to tread lightly on because it's a sensitive one. I believe that the responsibility endowed to me by the city charter and the code give me the authority to make this decision on my own. And that if this is something that could be done with the budget we've got, I would have done it by now, and this would have been a courtesy briefing only. But it probably can't. As you can see there on the top right, we think it's going to be expensive enough to require formal bidding procedures. And what I can't do on my own, and what I do need you all for, is approval to move the money from various sources in order to pay for this. So once we know exactly what is required of the contaminants that we know of, and what that means for the complexity of the larger demolition, we'll know more precisely what we think it's going to cost, and I'll bring to you a funding plan for your approval in the weeks to come. So I know there's going to be constituent interest in this because of this stack's historical significance. And there may even be some folks who want to explore the preservation option more. But please understand that the number I quoted to you earlier for preservation does not account for the presence of the contaminated coal ash and doesn't take into account the risk that the city and the taxpayer would assume to keep any of the stack left standing on the site. But to try and be sensitive to these concerns of preservationists and others, I recommend that we commission an artist to produce a piece, a painting or an artful photograph or something to memorialize the stack. I'm not talking about a big statue that's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars. I'm talking about something small that is replicable, that folks who are interested could have copies of, that we could post in the lobby, in the museum, anywhere else of significance. But that in the end, safety is arguably a municipality's number one responsibility, and removing the stack is a critical next step to assure both the physical safety of our community and our financial safety as an organization. So, I'll be happy to answer any questions. Me and David have been working on this together, and he's been working on the more technical parts of it. And so if you have questions about that kind of stuff, I'll do my best, but I might have to take those back and hear from him. But any questions you have, I'll do my best to answer today.
All right, we will open it up for questions. Mr. Wise, any comments or questions for the manager?
I'm sure you guys, this is on. I'm sure you guys looked at it. Is there any feasible way to save part of it? Like 10 feet up?
There is a feasible way to do that physically, but that's where the financial risk comes in, because anything that we leave, we become liable for.
Right.
Our insurer has said they will not insure anything. So even though a stubby 10-foot section would probably be safe, if it's not, then we're on the hook.
That's where all the coal ash is, too.
Yeah, and I worry, as soon as I say that or think about it, I worry that somebody is going to get in there and get hurt. I do think there are ways to celebrate this site, and it's not exactly like how we're saving the digester from Acoustic for Roundabout, but we can certainly find a solution to memorialize the site without endangering the public. I have personally more concerns about the impact on the site than I actually do the smokestack. So in general, I think I favor welfare of our existing people over memorializing a brownfield site, to be as blunt as I can.
Ms. Holder?
I agree with the blunt as I can last statement. Address the safety before sinking money into memorializing it. My question is, given the history, has it caused any concerns for vegetation, water contamination, or airborne contamination, given the history?
So the good news is that the tanning process that was used at this plant is the less dirty of the two sort of popular tanning processes that were used at that time. There were wells, monitoring wells, that were dug throughout the property when they did the first assessment back in 2010. And those did conclude that some of those contaminants that were listed on the previous slide did make their way into the creek there. But they also had samples of the creek further downstream, and they found that the contaminants didn't make their way downstream. So they were sort of isolated to the segment of the stream that's actually on the site. As for the contaminants in the ground that make it a brownfield, they are contained at the moment. And so when we start to dig and poke around in the ground to build the trail, they're going to have to do it thoughtfully. We have to create what's called an environmental management plan that talks about how we're going to construct sensitively around the contaminated areas, and what we do. When I say we, I mean the folks building the trail on our behalf. What they'll do if they come across some unknown contaminants, how they would deal with that. But there are methods that they can use to make sure that they don't spread those contaminants. Now, with that said, the coal ash itself is not part of the scope of the trail construction. So BLE will have to tell us how to safely remove that. And I suspect that that's going to involve a lot of guys in suits like that, a lot of special construction methods, and a lot of public outreach that will have to tell people that stuff's going on the site that is going to be, interesting to see.
So they'll let you know in advance how they're going to contain the contaminants as they're removing them.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Has the public in that area been, or the neighbors been made aware of what's going on?
We've notified the neighbors whose properties were within the fall zone.
Okay.
Mr. Baker?
Yeah, there's, I think I know I can see this actually from my front door. And I've lived there for 16 years, so it's part of the skyline, as much of a skyline as we have here in Brevard that I can see. So it's pretty close to home for me. I'm curious, and you may not be able to answer this, but on the question of the contamination within the stack itself, I think it is good news that the bricks don't seem to be contaminated. But the fact that the ground immediately around the stack is, I'm curious about how that might affect the cost of disposal of those materials, because I know that was a big question mark that we have. And will they be able to demolish the bricks in such a way that they remain sort of separate and able to be taken away in a less expensive manner? Does that question make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things we're going to ask BLE to explore, and if this is possible, it will sort of kill two birds with one stone, is whether it would be economical to grind up the bricks and use them as beneficial fill for our trail. Because when they dig this far down to build the trail, Wesley's going to strangle me because I'm going to get this wrong. They have to lay down a bed of stone or other material in order to help the land drain. And if they could crush up these bricks and use the bricks as that fill, that would kill two birds with one stone. And I say that because one of the disposal options that the state has talked to us about as a possibility is to just bury the bricks on site. It's already contaminated. There's already a plan in place to make sure that that contamination doesn't spread. It wouldn't hurt it to add, some old dirty bricks on top of that. And so I don't want to do that because I don't want a pile of bricks right off the trail. That can be a hazard in their own way. But if they can be ground up and used as part of the trail, that might be a way to dispose of them safely.
And you've sort of already covered this, but I just, the word contamination and brownfield and Superfund can be scary for the general public. And I just want to make sure we reiterate that this site has been tested multiple times, and there's been no indication that there's any danger to the public from contamination around the site.
That's correct.
And the areas where there are concerns are pretty targeted. I mean, they're a pretty limited area within the 12-acre lot themselves.
The trail path follows a defined route that was designed explicitly to avoid the dirtiest areas. There's a couple of spots of where significant lead contamination was found. You don't want to disturb those. They're perfectly safe if they're left undisturbed. And so the trail kind of weaves its way around those spots. After the trail is built, those spots will also be fenced off so that there's a obvious physical delineation between where the trail user ought to be and where they ought not to be.
Okay. I think those are all my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Daniel?
Yeah, I've had a little bit of experience in my career, situations with masonry in this condition. And unprotected masonry, the actual mortar joints turn to dust. So seeing the crack in that first photo is alarming, but even more alarming to realize the unseen damage of the failing mortar. I would suggest that probably does need to come down. But I have to say I also like the suggestion you just made of using the ground brick as a bed for the trail. And that would become, in my mind, a memorial to that tower in itself, if that were to be done. Make good use, no waste, and that history will still be there, although you won't see it. So, thank you.
Mr. Lytle?
Yeah, thank you for the report. really thorough, lots of great information. One thing I wonder is, with it being an environmental issue, and this may be a little too early to talk about until we know the cost, but any alternate sources of funding to not blow your budget. That's the first thing I think of. And then also memorializing it. Yeah, we could do something visible, but then it turns into, really needing to educate about the site, because a lot of people won't know what the site is, even if you had a visual memorial there too. So is there anything that visibly we can educate people as they walk the trail and learn more about the site? So those are the only two things is, keep in mind if there's any possible way we can save budget, whether through federal government, state government, either because it's close to the trail or because it's an environmental hazard, safety. Let's try to save some money.
Yes, sir. We got some feelers out to our various funding friends in the state and federal government, and we're hoping that they can find some money in the couch cushions for us.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Manager. All right, Council, we will move on with our agenda. Next on is the consent and information agenda.
Public hearing.
Oh, public hearing, yes. Oh, goodness, I jumped way too far. Next is our public hearing. Oh, yes, okay. And a public hearing, the public is asked to adhere to the following guidelines for the public hearing. Register with the city clerk by printing your name, address, and phone number. When it is your turn, step to the podium in front of city council, state your name and address clearly, be concise, avoid repetition, and limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. Direct comments to the full council, not to an individual council member or to staff. This is a time to provide your comments, but not to ask questions. A public hearing is not an appropriate venue for a question and answer session. And before we actually hear from the public, we are going to be walked through what the public hearing is all about by, looks like Emily Brewer is going to be presenting to us.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. The public hearing before you today is for the Family Place of Transylvania County. They applied for a rezoning of their property at 970 Old Hendersonville Highway. The request is to remove the existing conditional zoning district and instead apply the base zoning district of residential mixed use. The property's current conditional zoning district was enacted in 2011. The primary condition of this conditional zoning district was to allow the community service organization land use, which was not allowed in the general residential zoning district, which was on the property at the time, so that they could operate on this parcel. That land use is no longer listed in our UDO, but we do have cultural or community facility, which is allowed by right in the residential mixed-use zoning district. Therefore, the requested rezoning would maintain the Family Place as a legal conforming use. Future use and development of the site would follow all of the residential mixed-use regulations. This does align with the future land use map, which identifies the area as Activity Center -minor, for which residential mixed use is an applicable zoning district. There's also a substantial amount of residential mixed use on this map. It is the orange that is directly across the street and generally centered around the intersection of Osborne Road, so there shouldn't be any spot zoning considerations for this property either. Planning Board discussed this at their January 27th meeting and unanimously recommended in favor of the proposal before you. And in accordance with North Carolina general statutes, they've also submitted a statement of consistency and reasonableness in your packet. This presentation is for public hearing purposes only. No action is requested at this time, but the draft enacting ordinance is included in your packet as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Emily. At this time, we will open the public hearing. Council, do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is officially open, and we have one individual that has signed up to speak, and Mr. Tony Gilman. Mr. Gilman, you have 5 minutes, and I will give you 30-second warning when you are close to the end.
I won't take near that. Hi, Madam Mayor and City Council members. My name's Tony Gilman. I live at 143 Holland Road in Pisgah Forest, and I'm currently a board member and former chair of the Family Place, from which this application derives. The Family Place has been a nonprofit strengthening families in this city and county for about 30 years. Its mission is to strengthen families and build resiliency through support, education, and community building. We offer programs for parents, support programs, at-risk programs, and it just really allows a mother or a parent to bring their child in for some open play and to connect with other parents. And so I wanted to tell you a little bit about the organization, and we're willing to have any questions that you have about the application. There's a staff member here that was involved with the zone change application. And what really the purpose of it is, we wanted to put on a new sign. About a year ago, we developed a new logo for the Family Place. And we have kind of a small sign that people miss all the time. And I have too, to be honest. So we're proposing to increase that sign by 2 feet, not an electric sign or anything like that. But apparently to do that, we needed to do the zoning application change. So I'm really just here to let you know we can answer any questions that you may have about this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gilman. All right, that is the only person that signed up. Council, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is officially closed. We will now open it up for council comments and questions. And we'll start with Mr. Lytle.
No questions.
Mr. Daniel.
I don't have any questions, but I do have a request of staff. On these maps, could you make sure we can read the road sign, the road names?
I'm sorry?
Can you make sure we can read the road names?
Oh, yes, of course.
I had to go to GIS, and that was hard to find it on that. So, I know it's on there, but it's really light. You can hardly, it took me a while to find it, but I have no questions.
Mr. Baker?
I don't have any questions.
Ms. Holder?
I went online too. Thank you. Thank you for explaining what you do and for the service that you offer to the community. I don't have any questions.
Mr. Wise?
No questions. I just appreciate the work you do in our community. Thank you.
All right. All right, thank you, Ms. Brewer. No questions, and we will move on. All right. Next, we have the consent and information on the agenda. Number 1 has been moved over to new business. So the following items are on. Number 2, 2025 unpaid taxes and authorization to advertise and begin enforced collection remedies. 3, Estito Trail Project Amendment, Great Trails State Grant, $168,500. 4, Budget Amendment, Police Accreditation Grant, $131,600. 5, Resolution appointing Conserving Carolina representative to the Acosta Trail Advisory Board. 6, Tax Settlement Report, January 2026. 7, Public Works and Utilities Committee meeting minutes, January 7th, 2026. And 8, Housing Committee minute meetings, December 9th, 2025. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Consent is approved. All right, moving on to new business. Our first item of new business is Habitat for Humanity request for tap fee reimbursement. And we've got Emily Brewer back again.
Yes. On December 19th of 2025, the city received a request from Transylvania Habitat for Humanity for tap fee reimbursement through the city's Housing Trust Fund. The Housing Trust Fund is authorized to expend funds to reimburse pre-development costs for projects being developed for the creation of affordable housing. This includes the reimbursement of tap fees associated with the project. There are some eligibility requirements that are met for this as well. The request is to reimburse Habitat for Humanity $12,375 for the tap fees that are paid for two different projects. The first is a recently completed single-family house located on West Main Street, and the second is a 6-unit cluster home development at the intersection of Curley Street and Kings Mill Road. The development includes 6 individual single-family structures that are clustered around a common open space with shared parking at the rear of the property. Habitat is also partnering with Blue Ridge Community College to help build those cluster homes, which are currently under construction. As I said, Transylvania Habitat for Humanity's program aligns with the beneficiary requirements of our Housing Trust Fund. The request was considered by the Housing Committee at their February 10th meeting and was unanimously recommended in favor of this request. For fiscal impact, we wish to remind City Council that the Housing Trust Fund is officially underwater, as the $925,000 debt the city took out to purchase the Azalea Avenue property resides in that fund. However, Council has pledged to contribute adequate resources over the next several fiscal years to cover the necessary principal and interest payment. The fund is also encumbered with the upcoming second payment of the Fairhaven Meadows loan, which is expected to be dispersed in July. However, prior to these commitments, there was approximately $20,000 in cash in the Housing Trust Fund that was now designated for these types of uses. If council wishes to fund this reimbursement request, there will be less than $10,000 in cash left in the fund for these miscellaneous uses. If you have any other questions about the finances, I will direct you to Wilson or Dean. Staff is requesting that council take one of the following actions tonight: grant the request for tap fee reimbursement, deny the request for tap fee reimbursement, or table the request for further consideration by either you, City Council, or the Housing Committee.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Council, do I have a motion regarding this request?
I'll make a motion that we grant the request from Transylvania Habitat for Humanity for tap fee reimbursement.
And I'll second it.
Okay, we'll open it for comment. Mr. Baker.
Yeah, we did discuss this at the Housing Committee and had a good discussion about, obviously, we've got some irons in the fire with housing and have gotten, if you count Fairhaven Meadows and the potential of the Azalea Avenue site, that's 100 units of housing that you could consider on the way. And that's all great. But it also obviously impacts the city's budget. The good thing is that for about 4 budget years, we have been planning and setting aside money for purposes of affordable housing, and we've got a little bit left over. And this might seem, like a small project, what impact it's going to have, and the issue of affordability in housing can seem sort of overwhelmingly big and complicated. But I think it's important not to, give in to pessimism and cynicism or, no project really is too small when you're talking about a problem so big. So 6 homes, that's 6 families that could have a roof over their head in our community. And Habitat has really stepped up, I think, in the last few years and is focusing on Transylvania County and Brevard. And they've shown themselves to be a great partner. I know they've got some bigger projects in the works as well. So to me, this is a good faith effort on the part of the city to recognize the work of Habitat, but also help in reimbursing some of the fees that we have to make these affordable homes possible.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes, I think that this has long been recognized by the city and the Housing Committee, which I served on before now, as a good strategy to encourage affordable housing. This is a strategy that the city can utilize without, a major expenditure on our part, but it certainly does encourage folks like the Habitat for Humanity to proceed with these sorts of projects. As far as the financing and the lack of funding that we're starting to show, I think Aaron is correct in that we are spending that money as we said we would, as we've always intended to spend that money. I'm personally an advocate of not taking taxpayer money and hoarding it. I'm in favor of putting that money to work. And that is what I think we're doing, and I think this is something that we have indicated that we were going to do. So I feel like this is something we should move forward with to fulfill the implicit obligation that we made to our partners in housing, so that we're not the only ones putting up all the money. This is an organization that's outside the city that's doing work that's important for housing and families in our neighborhoods. So, thank you.
Mr. Lytle?
Yeah, I agree with the sentiments. When I think about this, the first thing I think of is, well, how much would it cost the city to push through 6 units? And I think it'd be a little bit more than $12,000. So it just speaks to the importance that our nonprofits have, and certainly this is a number one issue, as we know, affordable housing. So, I support any of those efforts to prop up these organizations and incent them to continue the good work.
Ms. Holder?
When this came up at the housing meeting, Wilson used the term, and he's used it before, that we were house poor in this area. And so I was thinking maybe we could help some. And after we had much discussion, we all agreed that we need to give them all of this. And I'm glad that we have come to that resolve to be able to offer the full $12,000, I think, that they're asking for. And Habitat does a lot in this area, and I've actually seen some benefit from it. So I'm glad that we're able to do this much.
Mr. Wise?
Yeah, housing is our number one crisis in this community and really across the nation, unfortunately. And I could not agree with Gary more that we should spend the resources we have. That's why we've created this fund. So this is one of the easiest decisions I've had to make in recent years. So, yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on, our next item is the authorization to apply for North Carolina Helene Recovery Recycling Infrastructure Grant. And we have Shawnee Cummings, who is our assistant to the city manager, who is going to present this.
All right. Good evening, council. Just a heads up, I will be requesting action tonight that you approve the resolution that is located in your packet, allowing us to apply for this grant. And this grant is the North Carolina Helene Recovery Recycling Infrastructure Grant, administered by NCDEQ specifically for counties that were impacted by Helene. It's looking to support, expand, or create recycling programs, or programs that will reduce waste infrastructure. And so with the current condition of our recycling / garbage truck fleet, we are going to be, with your approval, requesting 5 new recycling trucks. And then as a secondary project, we will be requesting 3,000 tipper carts for waste collection. These will mimic the carts that we have already for recycling. And we feel that this will improve the efficiency that the sanitation team can work at. And then additionally, there are issues, number one, for our trucks. With the sharing between recycling and garbage collection, there's issues of cross-contamination between them. So this would allow us to have dedicated trucks for recycling. And it would also reduce the amount of rejected loads of recycling that occur at the recycling center in Candler. And with the tipper carts, this will help decrease the risk of worker injury for the sanitation team, in the sense that they will no longer have to lift the trash cans and use their body strength. That they will be able to roll it up to the back of the garbage truck and it will just tip it in. We also are hoping that by allowing each individual household to have 1 to 2 tipper carts, this will help deter excessive waste generation and prompt more recycling. Because currently people are allowed to put out as many cans as they would like, and some households will put out like 3 to 4 trash cans. So we're hoping this will create a shift in that direction as well. And so as mentioned, the resolution is included in your packet. We're looking for authorization to apply for this grant. Most important part, there is no local match required. And the deadline is on Friday, so that is why we need action tonight.
All right, thank you, Shawnee. All right, council, do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we will open it up for questions and comments. Mr. Lytle?
I think if you can just train me not to put out my 3 bins, I think I can save the city some money. I'm pretty, I generate a lot of garbage. I was just curious about the rejection of recycling loads. That's just interesting to me. Are we, at a very high percentage versus other clients? How do we sit in terms of our recycling and purity?
That's a great question. I'm not sure in terms of comparisons to other cities. I believe we have about 60 tons of recycling that were rejected, roughly, which sounds like a lot, but it's probably only about 4 truckfuls. And that's typically from cross-contamination due to either mingling with trash that was in there or improper disposal on the part of residents.
Yeah, I think this is great. It's anything for efficiency. Efficiency is always good. I'd also really like to see us look at our overall recycling, public relations to get better. There's lots of folks that don't know what to recycle and what's recyclable. So I'd like to see us, piggyback sort of this project with that larger, public awareness would be great. Thanks.
No problem.
Mr. Daniel?
I second that. That's a great idea.
What, get rid of the trash cans?
No, the education part, yeah. But, no, I have no other comments.
Mr. Baker?
Well, Chase, my first response to this was, man, recycling trucks are pretty cheap because you can get 5 recycling trucks for a single fire truck. That's pretty good. No, I want to thank staff for their resourcefulness. I'm a big fan of the idea of standardizing the tipper carts or the trash cans. I'll tell a very brief story. When I was a brand-new homeowner in 2010, I was so excited. I went straight to Lowe's, and I was buying all my, things that I thought I needed as a first-time home buyer. I bought the biggest rolling trash can I could possibly find. It cost me $200 plus. And the very first time I rolled it out, probably Wesley put a sticker on there that said, "This is way too big and it cannot be used." And I think I had that in my backyard for about 12 years before I finally found somebody to take it from me. So, a silly example, but it is a reason why standardizing the trash cans, I think, is a good idea. So, thank you.
Ms. Holder?
Well, I bought a smaller trash can and someone stole it. It was new.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't. Replace yours. The only question that I had was about 3,000 tipper trucks, carts. And is that enough? How many residents or homeowners do we, or
Yeah, so
places?
we have about, 2,800 residents, because many of the residents live in complexes that are serviced by dumpsters, so they will not have to have like individual carts. So it'll give us some wiggle room in the sense that it'll cover everybody, and then it'll give us quite a bit to have in case anybody breaks them or needs a replacement or needs a second one. We might have that option available as well.
Okay. And remind me how many more trucks, how many recycling trucks?
We are requesting 5 at $250,000 apiece.
Okay. I got comments from a resident right after the storm that said that they called about to find out when pickup was going to happen and was told that the trucks didn't like the cold weather. So hopefully we'll have trucks that will like the cold weather and we can continue the service. Thank you so much.
Mr. Wise?
Yeah, I work from home, and I see these poor guys. I must have some heavy trash, man. I don't know what's going on, but I see them hauling my trash can, and I feel bad for them. They're always very nice, though. So this is actually a great initiative. I completely agree with Dean about some education. I believe the Brevard Sustainability Task Force, if that's their full name, is actually looking at some recycling education. So we could certainly talk to them, because I believe they're looking at that now, so.
And I will just say that after our discussion this morning at our morning meeting, staff has already posted some additional recycling information on our city website. So
Excellent.
it's is out there, and we're going to be looking at other ways to get that knowledge out, because, people, they don't understand what they can and can't recycle. So action has already started, and we will partner with the Sustainability Council because, we had a big discussion on recycling just last Friday with them. Yeah.
Great.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cummings. All right, our next item is the resolution of intent to annex city-owned property on Azalea Avenue and Old Hendersonville Highway. And we have Emily Brewer again.
Back in June, the city acquired approximately 3.7 acres on Azalea Avenue and Old Hendersonville Highway. You all know this well. Our purpose in acquiring that was to have a city-supported affordable housing development. Very recently, the city entered into an agreement with Fitch Irick Corporation to submit the project for a low-income housing tax credit award. And to facilitate development, the city needs to annex the property prior to the final application deadline in May to show that the property is able to connect to city sewer. While not currently available, the city is actively pursuing funding from Transylvania County to extend sewer infrastructure to the Azalea Rhododendron neighborhood, which would also serve this property. Per North Carolina general statutes, the city may adopt a resolution stating its intent to annex the city-owned property and setting the date for public hearing. So we're requesting that you adopt the attached resolution, which does just that, states the intent to annex the property and sets the date of the public hearing as March 16th.
Council, do I have a motion to adopt the attached resolution and set the date for the public hearing as March 16th?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we will open discussion. Mr. Daniel.
I have no comment. We've talked about this a lot.
Okay. Mr. Lytle.
No comment.
Mr. Wise.
Yeah, great next step. No comment.
Ms. Holder.
No comment, thank you.
Mr. Baker.
I don't have any questions.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And our last item of new business is what we moved from consent, and that was the accept the state revolving fund loan for the wastewater treatment plant Phase 1 construction. Mr. Manager, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, ma'am. About 5 months ago, y'all gave us permission to pursue this funding source. We found out informally about 6 weeks ago that we'd been awarded it, and we found out formally about 2 weeks ago. And with that formal notice comes a series of resolutions and things that we have to approve to officially accept and execute this funding source. And so I'm asking you to pass a resolution that does those things here tonight. But then I also want to say that with this award, the estimated cost of Phase 1 of the wastewater treatment plant project is fully funded.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Council, do I have a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the acceptance of the loan?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We'll open it for discussion. Mr. Wise.
This is exciting. We've been working on this for years at this point, and a lot of shifting conditions, shifting funds, shifting parameters. There's been a lot of public questions and inquiry about what's happening with wastewater. I'll say it again. We have a monthly meeting that the public is welcome to, where we talk about this and a lot of other things with our infrastructure. So this is exciting to have Phase 1 kind of fully encapsulated with funding, and part of Phase 2 engineering. And Phase 2 is a huge phase in this next step. So this is exciting.
Ms. Holder.
It's something we can't avoid. I'm glad we're at this point. Thank you.
Mr. Baker.
Yeah, I asked that we pull this out of consent really just so we could acknowledge for the public that this is happening, and it's a very big deal, Our wastewater treatment plant has been discussed for a very, very long time, and there have been efforts, within the last 15 or 20 years to really fix up the plant, and we're at the point where we can actually get started on that. So that's a big deal, and to get the funding, from outside sources is great. Obviously, we're working on estimates right now. I know as we go to bid, we'll have some more hard and fast numbers. But I also wanted to emphasize for the public, and I guess I'll ask this in a form of a question to the manager. So Phase 1, which is what we're talking about being the estimate being funded, Phase 1 will actually increase the current operating capacity of the wastewater treatment plant, won't it?
In a physical sense, yes. So right now, the plant is permitted at 2.5 million gallons a day. However, because it's old and inefficient, it actually only runs at about 1.6 or 1.7 million gallons a day. And Phase 1 will give it a tune-up and allow it to operate at its full capacity. So although it won't change its capacity on paper, in practice, it will buy it about 800,000 to 900,000 more gallons of capacity.
Yeah, and I just wanted to emphasize that because I think that is important for the public to understand. I know there's a lot of questions about the wastewater treatment plant and what our plans are for it. So I think it's good to know for everyone that we have real improvements on the way.
Mr. Daniel?
I'm pretty excited about this. I think just even the fact that we're just getting it up to capacity is such a big step forward for for what we've been able to achieve in the past. And I think that a lot of that is the will of this council to do so, to make that an important priority for this, for moving forward with our efforts, and as well as the staff to take this on and to really make this happen. And, you know, the fact that this first phase is pretty much fully paid for, I think is an outstanding achievement. And I'm looking forward to this being done and completed. And I'm looking forward to seeing how we are able to proceed with the following stages of this as well. So thank you.
Mr. Lytle?
Thanks for the diligence with this. Extremely important. First phase, we can't do anything without the money to support it. So it's a great milestone, and I know there's lots and lots of work to be done moving forward, but have to take moments to sort of pat yourself on the back and know that things are heading in the right direction. So thanks.
All right, we've got a motion and a second on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, that was our last item of new business. We will move on to remarks and future agenda considerations. And we will start with Mr. Wise.
Oh, great. Hey, everybody. I want to first thank Public Works because they're awesome and they are still doing storm cleanup and making it happen and doing everything else. Just too much list, and you guys are awesome. I know Wesley loves it when we call him out. Thank you, sir. I also hope everyone looked at our consent agenda, and almost all of that is grants, and that is our planning department and our staff getting after it and making things happen that would never happen if they weren't working for us. So there is so much going on, and I really appreciate the huge amount of work that's happening to make sure that this is the greatest city on the planet, and it is. I want to thank Mr. Powell. I wish he would stay to the end because I always kind of mention him, but he had brought up Pisgah Piper, who, you know, I love Pisgah Piper, but it's been really warm. I'm not complaining.
It was cold before, you know.
But it is interesting to me because we are seeing more of a warming trend, and we were just talking about the tannery and the smokestack and sort of the rampant industrialism that happened and is still happening in our country, and we're contending with Augusta and the smokestack brownfield sites to this day. And I think it's important to remember that the current administration just rescinded all EPA regulations about global warming, which we can physically see and measure, and that we should pay attention to that because the impact that has on us here locally and the world, it will end up killing millions of people. So it's really important that we keep that kind of thing in mind when we're talking about these local issues. And finally, kind of piggybacking onto that, this is President's Day. And President's Day was originally created to kind of celebrate the actual office, not any individuals. And I think it's really important for me to keep in mind what that office is meant to be about. It is an executive office, the executive branch, to really enforce law and not create law. And we have three branches of our government. We should really work to make sure all three branches are working the way they should and not the way they are working now. So I would encourage us to continue to write all of our representatives and ask them about what's happening with the administration and what they support. Thank you.
Ms. Holder?
I'm probably the only one who has ever done this and made a statement and not sure that it went right. So I want to go back to the last meeting just for a minute to bring clarity to my remarks about people who do not have homes and are in the streets when it's cold. I didn't mean it for temporary situations like the warming station. I was thinking of a term longer term than just when we have the storm, but warming places for people to go when we don't have a storm. So that was my intent on that, and so I just wanted to bring clarity to those remarks. As Lauren said, today is President's Day, and I thought about the first and only, so far, African-American or black president we've ever had, Barack Hussein Obama. And if you saw the recent post of him and his beautiful wife, we live in a beautiful America, and I just wish everybody would understand that, especially when we are in leadership and in that type of leadership. I'm glad I live in a city that I don't think that most of us feel that way, and most of us would not agree with what happened with that depiction. I was angered by it. I was hurt by it. I preached about it. And I'm glad that I was able to see the fulfillment of my dad's prophecy that one day we would have a black president. I would like to say, and ditto what he said, I hope we will have another one, and that we will be leaders and not just people who are about themselves. And as far as Gump was saying, that's all I have to say about that.
Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I want to bring up an issue, and I think it may require council to give some consensus to the manager about moving forward on staff time being devoted to studying it. So our friends over the mountain in Canton recently took up the issue of data centers and crypto mining operations. They obviously had their major employer, the paper mill, just close, which is, close to what we experienced 25 years ago here in Brevard. And they have had some companies look at that site for potential data centers. And I know that we have had some companies in that same space look at the Acoustic site. And so they, over in Canton, passed a moratorium. I don't know all the details of that. I don't really feel like at this point I need to know all the details of that. But I do think that given what we already know about those operations, they're an incredible drain of resources, both water and electricity. They also do not provide very many jobs at all. And as we're talking about resources that we have that are limited, one of our greatest resources, which is very limited, is buildable land. And when we have space in our community that could be productive and provide good paying jobs, and we talked about some of the legacy of our industrial past and some of the contamination that we're still dealing with earlier in this meeting. Well, some of these operations, create contamination in the here and now. And it's also new technology. It's exploding at a massive rate across the country. I saw a chart today that I think like 8% of our electricity usage currently is data centers in the country. And that has, increased exponentially over the last 5 to 10 years. So I'd like for us to ask the staff and the attorney to figure out, what is legal for us to consider in that space, look at what Canton has done, and then consider taking action at a later date. So I don't know if we need to head nod or how you want to.
Managers?
No objection.
Council?
Anybody on that?
Up?
Okay.
Thumbs up, down?
Will do.
All right. think you got what you need, Mr. Manager.
I do. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing what staff comes back with on that. And secondly, I just wanted to, similar to Councilwoman Holder, I thought about some comments I made at the last meeting, and I was discussing sort of information coming from the city and how public information, I feel, is as accessible today as it's probably ever been. But as I was thinking about that after I said it, I was thinking about our committee meetings and even our city council meetings. And we tend to fill up the agenda with items that need an action. We have a space for presentations, but they're usually limited to things like the storm prep and things like that. And I wonder if we need to set aside some time, both at the committee level for staff and at the council level, to just give general updates to the public. And these don't have to be long. The county has a section for the manager's report on their agenda every meeting, and nobody wants a longer meeting. But I do think that we have an obligation to share certain things that, looking at myself, I just sort of take for granted that I know certain things because I'm in a meeting or I get an email, and the public doesn't have that same benefit. So there are things that are sort of longer term that we're working on that I think we deserve to give the public an update on. So I just throw that out there for staff to consider that, both at the committee level and at city council.
Mr. Daniel?
Well, I will echo one thing that Mr. Baker said, and that is that if you look into what data centers, actually how they operate, it sounds like a pretty benign sort of industry. They're pretty nasty. They're really bad environmental operations, so I appreciate that concern. At the Downtown Master Plan Committee that we just had meeting, we were talking about the co-ed theater, and it was brought up that by the Heart of Brevard that there's a grant that the city can apply for, some $800,000. I realize that we don't have an itemized estimate on what needs to be done, but I think I would like, and again, this may require input from the council, but I would like to see our staff begin to work on making that application. I believe it's due in April. I think that even if the insurance companies pay for the damage that's done, I think this grant, as I understood it, would be available even to upgrade the building itself. Sort of like it's very similar to the grant that D.D. Bullwinkle's got. And I think that it would be great if we went ahead and began the work on applying for that grant. So.
No comments tonight. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Attorney?
Just a reminder of a brief closed session, please.
Yes, we remember.
Wow. Smiles, everyone, please.
You said, Madam Clerk.
And I meant it.
No comments, thank you.
Mr. Manager?
No, ma'am.
Just a couple of things. I'll just echo what council said. We live in a really special place. We have so much going on, and staff has done such a great job. A $5 million grant added to the $8 million that we had for $13 million, plus grants that are there for building the trails. Yes, we have challenges, and I want to say I think staff has done a wonderful job finding out all of the issues and the details so that we can make good risk analysis decisions regarding the tower, the tannery tower, the smokestack. And of course, we'll be moving forward and doing just that. Couple of reminders. One, primaries, voting is going on. As we talk about our government, That is your fundamental right. That is your voice. Vote in the primary. Early voting goes from now until from Saturday. Yeah, for basically the next 2 weeks. So please, it takes 2 minutes to go in there. There is no lines. It's simple. So I encourage people to please vote. Please use that fundamental right that we have as Americans. Also, this is Black History Month, and I want to remind people that we have an event at the Mary C. Jenkins on Saturday. It celebrates sort of Black history in the region. We have speakers from, I think, a number of counties, from Cherokee, from Transylvania, remind me here, Tyree, Buncombe, and Henderson County. It is from 11 to 2. It's free. You don't have to have a reservation. So please take advantage and learn about our diverse history and what really the richness that we have here. So I encourage people to please show up at Mary C. Jenkins for our Black History Month celebration that is going on. Also, we are going to be putting out the applications for our community garden. I believe those are going to be out on the 18th. We'll start is that the right date?
Yes.
City Clerk? Okay. The 18th, we'll be taking applications for the community garden. This is something we created 4 years ago for the community. It's a benefit. If you want a garden plot, they start at $5 for a 5-foot plot and go up to $20 for a 20-foot plot. And I think we have 40 plots out there. So again, something for the community. So take a look. Those will be on our website and on Facebook, and we'll be putting it in the newspaper so that everyone gets the word. And finally, I do want to mention we have a really important listening session coming up on March 9th. I think all of us are concerned about the status of health care. Everybody needs health care. And Mission Hospital has had its third immediate jeopardy finding from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. Third finding in 3 years. One of the worst findings. That is the worst finding a hospital can have. And I'm not sure there are very many other hospitals that have had that many in that many of years. So what we have is we have the independent monitor, we have representatives from North Carolina, DHHS, we have a representative from the Attorney General's office, as well as HCA management, coming for a listening session here. It will be on March 9th. It's in the Rogo Room. It will be from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And they want to hear what we think about healthcare here. And if you're not familiar with what has been going on at Mission Hospital, and a finding of immediate jeopardy means that due to basically negligence on the hospital's part, somebody either died or was seriously injured. And they had at least one death that resulted in the immediate jeopardy. And so, again, I encourage people to please show up for this and start telling them if you're concerned. If you've had a great experience out at Mission, tell them that. If you've had a problem at Mission, tell them that. If you haven't been to Mission, but you just care about the quality of your health care, show up and tell them that. They are here to listen, but if we don't show up and speak, then shame on us. So it is 5:30 to 7 on March 9th. And I think it's really important. I will certainly be there. And I hope we have a full house with people from this community, because without health care, it's pretty hard to have a good quality of life. So just, you saw it in the paper. No registration is necessary. The paper was wrong. You just show up. So I hope to see you there. And with that, I believe I need a motion to go into closed session for potential litigation.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are in
Job, y'all.
closed session. Please turn off the broadcast and please clear the room.